back to affirmations, I'm worthy, I'm important, I'm here to make a difference, and you are. If you try to yourself, we have 3,000 people committing today because they don't feel worthy. We teach their 7 limiting beliefs. And we did the whole chapter on it because everyone's got to know what they are.
What's the mindset? What's going on internally from doubt?
You're going to do affirmations, which you become what you say to yourself and believe, think about, act upon, it becomes you. Is the first affirmation is, I am rich. And you need to say it 50 to 100 times a day. The best promotion hasn't been made yet. The best sale hasn't been made yet.
I could not be more excited for today's Be Wealthy episode. I am joined by the one and only, and I'm not going to tell you his name yet, but I'll let you start guessing who it might be. This person has more new best-selling books than I could possibly think about. We're going to get into a story of how my wife was reading some books to his kid, and he doesn't know this, but there's one of his books, Career, that had a massive impact. So we're going to get to all of that. But without further ado, Mark Victor Hansen, welcome to the Be Wealthy podcast.
My pleasure, and I'm glad to hear the impact, because what I want to do is have impact stories that bring people to full life and transformation to be all they can, do all they can, have all they can, save all they can so they can give all they can. How's that?
That is, well, Mark, I can't think of someone who's done more of that than you, and I want to jump right there. I'll jump right in. You've been called, right? I did a lot of research prepping you, so you may get questions from me, hopefully that you've never had before, I hope. But one, you've been called America's Ambassador of Possibility. And I read that and I thought, that was what you did for me. It created possibilities. So what I want to ask you to start is, when did you first realize that the possibility wasn't just an idea for you, but your responsibility? You wear this like it's a responsibility.
First of all, thank you. I haven't heard that question before. So I go bankrupt in 1974. I've been in graduate school, the smartest guy on the planet, as far as I was concerned, the 4th smartest guy, according to Time magazine. Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller had 110 honorary degrees, lots of inventions like geodesic domes. And I tried to be Bucky, which was a terrible mistake. My worst experience, I lost $2 million in one day. I was building domes like New York, Wall Street Racket Club, Botanical Gardens, aviaries. But I was building out of PVC. Now that's petrochemicals. And the Arabs said, we can write checks so big your banks and wants to know. I went bankrupt so fast I had to check a book out of the library, How to Go Bankrupt by Yourself at the world's biggest library, New York Public Library. And it was my worst, because for 6 months, I'm sleeping in front of another guy's room in a sleeping bag in Hicksville, Long Island, New York. So you can see I was no longer styling and profiling. So in a book Crystal and I wrote, my beloved wife, who I call the goddess of exquisiteness, ask the bridge from your dreams to destiny. We say you can only ask 3 ways. You ask yourself, ask others, ask God. So I asked God, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? And God said, what do you want to do? I said, holy cow, I was ready to kill myself. So I want to talk to people that care about things that matter, that make a life transformative difference in their life. So to go do it, and I go down to my roommates in Hicksville. There are 4 of us at the time, so 3 of my roommates. I say, hey guys, any of you know a young speaker, not a cotton top like me, a white-haired person, not a Broadway star, a celebrity, a lawyer, a doctor, somebody that I can relate to, preferably young? Guy said, yeah, here's my ticket. He's in real estate. He's 12, 20 years older than you, but you'll relate to him. And I go see this guy, Chip Collins. He winds up a dead audience. Now, because this is real estate, back then it was 18% interest, so nothing was selling, right?
Right.
Unless you buyer, owner, carry back, all the kind of stuff we can talk about, because I was buying then once I started making money again. So fascinating. I say, I want to do what you do. He said, kid, I know you won't believe this because you're so young, but lavalier mics had not been invented yet. So he had to shout at 500 people. So his voice was all burned out after 3 hours, and he made them laugh, made them joy, beat in their chest, feel good about this, and go out and profoundly, because it's done on you according to your belief. So he got them to believe again that there was a market and it would come back and they could make money today. So he said, look, don't do this. Go do a real business. 1,000 chance you'll make it. He became my mastermind partner. Long story short, he taught me to do the life insurance business. And only Tony Robbins and I did 1,000 talks a year. And what happened is they said, man, you are a great storyteller. Do you have a book? So I wrote a book. My first book was Stand Up, Speak Out, and Win. Back in 50 years ago when I'm starting this business, it was $1 a book and we sold them for 10 cash. The other thing you won't believe, there's no credit cards. So everything was cash.
So that's 1975 when you wrote that?
74, yeah.
So, okay, wow.
Yeah.
So
no,
that was the start. So it started with that seminar, going there. You saw him speak. You loved what he did. And that was that the launch point for the book writing and that career?
So let's talk about waking up possibility. I think find somebody that you can relate to that can be your mentor, you be the mentee. And they could be alive or dead. They could be a book. They could be an audio. Could be a YouTube video. But in this case, luckily, I had Chip Collins every Friday. We met at 4 o'clock to ask questions. But everybody's got to attend shows like yours or seminars to wake up the possibilities. Because the school system teaches you to be obedient, to be a servant, to be a slave, to get a job, which, as you know, my acronym is, it means you're just over broke. I want you to have a real MBA, a millionaire's bank account. And that's why we wrote, 1 Minute Millionaire, which we teach you how to make $1 million in 90 days. And Bob had written 50 Ways to Buy Real Estate for Nothing down and sold 50 million copies. And we did a book, Universal Symbol of Freedom, as you know, is a butterfly. And what we did when Random House gave us $1 million to do this book. But as you can see, I don't know if you can see the butterfly in the bottom of this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, first of all, they said, you can't do an interior decoration with color. I said, look, my corporate colors, pal, are gold and gold and purple because it's God's highest color. So the butterfly flies off to freedom. By the time you finish reading the book, you know how to get free because you want to be, you want to have to earn financial freedom, which is what you teach, so you can save a lot, earn even more, invest wisely, which is what you teach, and then create, contribute, and be charitable.
Mark, but that's what we're all chasing, right? What you just described is what, when everyone wakes up, regardless of their age, whenever they have that awakening moment, that's what they want.
Yeah.
But they get stuck, right? And we're going to get to that. But I really want to go from, so you start on this road. When did you get the idea for Chicken Soup for the Soul? Like when did before it comes out, before this massive franchise, what was the genesis? How do we get from the first book, in 1974, what was the line to get to there?
Yeah.
Even the idea.
Yeah. Dr. Canfield, Jack Canfield, third in his class, Harvard, all that good stuff, was speaking, and I was speaking on a company called Mandala, 6,000 people in the audience. He was a kickoff, and it was down in San Diego, and I was in Newport Beach at the time. I didn't get there on time, so I didn't get to watch Jack work. I'm the tie-up, and he sees me sell so much product because I did short stories that are heart-touching, soul-penetrating. Jack said, will you teach me how to do that? Because Jack was doing the teacher market because he's an educator, and I'm in the business market totally. I had 4 marketplaces, life insurance, real estate, the big churches, the mega churches, because you go where the money is, right? And make part of it yours is the deal. Serve the masses and then eat with the classes. The principle is, and then the direct selling business was so good to me. I mean, just amazing. Anyhow, so he said, teach me how to do that. I said, well, you got to do this, this, this. And his wife was a doctor, and I had him put all of his goals on the ceiling over his bed that he'd make $1 million a year because he'd never made over 100,000. I said, Jack, it's 10. If you make 400 a day times 250 work days, that's 100,000. If one of your kids, and he had a bunch of kids then, and I had, we've got 5 kids, 6 grandkids, like I told you a second ago, add 10. If one of my kids needed to make 4,000 or the kid had died, could I do it? Or let me put it on you, bro. Could you do it if you, or now because you're working on your dad even, whose health is coming back. If you had to make $4,000 and you had never made that, could you figure out how to do it?
Yeah. I mean, I would have to figure it out. I mean, if it was the goal and I had to do it, I would do it.
Yeah, because all of us are born over-endowed. We're born with 18 billion brain cells or more, whatever the real number is, but they don't come to work until you give them a big goal. The principle is called teleological, meaning it's a Greek term, but it means telos, meaning you're sending out a message to the universe. In science, it's called frequency. And Bob Proctor was one of my partners. And you turn up your frequency. You turn up your frequency to change your life. Doubling your money from $100,000 to $200,000 is hard work. Tenfolding from $100,000 to $1 million is easy because you got to just change the model and say, who's making $1 million in my business? Whatever they're doing, I can do. And what we did in answer to Chicken Soup, once I gave him 65 stories, and we came to a breakfast at a meeting at the Inside Edge. We're both on the board with Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra and all of us. He said, I want to do this as a book. I said, you can't do it. I wrote all those stories. That original creation's mine, pal. So we were 50-50 in it. And then, as you know, we sold over 500 million books and still going.
And so that idea was born out of a meeting with you two. You had the stories, and then you guys came together, and that was the. Did it launch just like that, or was there in the beginning we had to get traction, or was it just lightning in a bottle from day one?
No lightning in a bottle. We had 144 people say, hit the road, Jack, as that old metaphor goes. And I jokingly say they didn't like Jack. Jack's totally a lovable, wonderful guy. I think it's funny. And he'd do the same thing if he was on the show teasing about me right now. So, yeah, no, we got everybody to reject us. We finally took backpacks with three ring binders with our books in the back to ABA, American Book Association. First, I get there, and a guy with a Santa Claus beard and a Santa Claus body comes up to me and kisses both cheeks. I have no idea who this guy is. And he said, you're really going to make it here. I read your book. I endorsed it, and I really think you're going to make it. I said, I apologize to you, sir. I don't recognize who you are. I said, I'm Bob Fulgham. I said, you're Dr. Robert Fulgham? Everything I need to learn in kindergarten. I get goosebumps telling you that. And he said, yeah, cool. Yeah, kid, you're good. And we still got turned down. And the last third day of the thing, Health Communication says, look, boys, we'll take it if you buy 20,000 at $6 each. We had to sign up for $120,000 in book sales, and so we had to pre-sell them before they give us distribution. The book business is a tough business, but after being in it 50 years and now owning a publishing house myself, I teach people how to go through it without getting crushed by it.
So Mark, I think that's so important. You guys, the story was you were turned in 144 times, 144 no's. Is that right?
Yeah. We got a lot of pink slips. We did not show them to our respective ex-wives because you want to get cut off from life. Boy, that's the way to do it. I'll tell you, but once it started making it, I always supported him. Or, I go, good. That's not exactly the way we both remember it, but okay.
That's it. Well, I want to go because I think a lot of people watching this right now, we're in this season where things are a little weird in the market, and
totally,
they haven't seen this since, for those that haven't been in the game a little bit, it feels to me like 2007, right? Still a little euphoria, but still weirdness. And people will ask one time or two times or three times, and they get shut down, and if they even get there. Walk kind of the audience through as you're getting shut down 144 times, right? I mean, just, hey, no, thank you. No, thank you. What's the mindset? What's going on internally from doubt? We've all got a partner, money. Just kind of speak to that a little, because I think it's such a remarkable story. And every successful person I know has been through a journey. I don't know about 144 times, but kind of speak to what were you thinking? Was it just, it's not a fit and I know I'm going to get it, I'm going to go long enough until it's yes? Like, speak to that a little.
Okay, let me look at a couple of perspectives. First of all, I always taught and still teach one clean four-letter word, N-E-X-T, next. We have to keep saying next and not get stuck in the problem, because you're either in the problem or you're solving the problem, and you go to an alternative fourth dimension of thinking, which is what Elon Musk does. And that's why right now he's worth $800 billion, pretty soon $1 trillion, $8 multi-billion dollars, because he never looks. We can't go into for 54 years, NASA never went back to the moon. Now he's colonizing the moon because there's no gravity and he can fly to Mars. He's one of my heroes, right? Because he doesn't get stuck in the physical. He goes to the metaphysical, the higher level, the spiritual level, and says, what is it that we could do? Because all things are possible in spirit, right? And if you go to a higher dimension, you look down on, he is now making cars at Tesla in 17 seconds with humanoid robots that he is building called Optimus robots. Just cool stuff ever. Now, back to rejection. I read a story that I taught every day by Ross Perot, who was one-time presidential candidate, but Ross Perot is the top salesman at IBM. They would not listen to him because companies get complacent, they get lazy, they get fat, they get stupid. It is the model. Unless you are on an S curve, you've always got to have the next innovation behind the last. That's why you need minimum in writing 5-year goals, what you're going to do, because some you can accomplish in a month, some in a day, but you can't tell what they are because you don't know what your real frequencies are until they show up. At least that's how I see it. And if you disagree with that, you asked me to answer originally before we got on, and I'm telling you what I'm experiencing today, because I'm going to go to 127 with options for no. But Ross Perot starts this company called EDS, Electronic Data System, knocks on 80 doors, cold call, and the 81st door said yes to $4 billion. So you divide 80 rejections into $4 billion. He got paid $50,000 every time he said no. I said, Jack, we're going to get paid more than $50,000 for every time we say no. I don't know how it's going to work, but you got to trust me. I've been selling successfully since I was 9 years old. My parents had no money, none. And I wanted a bicycle, and I sold more greeting cards than any kid in America and became #1 greeting card salesman. 40 years later, when I start the licensing business, same company comes back, and we sold 897,000 boxes of Christmas cards that I wrote for us, and Jack okayed it, and it just kicked ass. Oops, sorry. Is that okay to say in your show?
Yeah, it's totally okay. Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to offend anyone's butt out there. Except I want to kick it, whether it's got 1 T or 2.
So your approach was just next. I'm getting paid to say no. We're going to get there and keep going. We know we've got something special here, and we've got to get it out there.
Yeah, and everyone watching now, the tens of thousands of people, they've all got enormous talent, not a little talent, enormous talent, but they got to take off all the withholds, whether it's spousal, whether it's business, whether it's and back to what you said, if you stop at 1, you're not going to make it, right? Because what universe does is it tests us. Do you have more belief than we have not belief, right? And Aladdin has 100% belief. I have 100% belief. And then the other thing you said that I said, I want to do a different perspective. On Sundays, I went to 2 different churches every Sunday in New York when I was breaking through. One was Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking, the guy who got, one of the 2 guys along with Think Grow Rich that got us out of the Depression. The other was in the afternoon, I went up to Harlem to Reverend Ike's church, and then when he died, he was one of my best friends, biggest black minister ever. He had 16 Rolls Royces, 8 mansions, all kinds of cool stuff. But he and I were very close. His wife calls us, Mark, you're his best friend. I need you to write his biography because his story's too cool. Because he healed people. He was a healing minister. I mean, he broke more crutches, got more people out of wheelchairs because it's a belief system. And he was in an astrally projected, cosmically consciousness awareness. And if you haven't read the book, my wife and I wrote his biography for him, and you'd love it, along with his son, Xavier.
What's the name of that book?
It's called Reverend Ike.
Reverend Ike. I will drop that in the show notes, and I'll put a link to that. I'm going to grab it as well.
Reverend Ike is Frederick J. Eichenkoder III, but you won't need that. You just need Reverend Ike. But he funded guys like T.D. Jakes and all that. I mean, so every industry needs somebody to mentor them to greatness, right? I mean, whether you're an artist, there's no master without a masterpiece. There's no masterpiece without a master. Sorry, I know my own lines.
It makes total sense. So the book I want to talk to you about, I read when I was early in my career, was The Aladdin Factor.
Oh, cool.
And I grew up in middle of nowhere, Colorado, poorest county, great parents, hardworking, but it's the country, right? I mean, and I remember grabbing that book and I read it, and it was just basically what I got. I mean, yes. And I read that book, and it was kind of the idea, well, I could ask for anything, right? I could literally in my life ask for anything. I had no clue I was going to get it, but I started just asking for what I wanted, and Mark, you already know where the story ends. It started working out. I told my team in prepping for this today, I said, I've read this book so many years ago, and it works. Like you start asking these questions of what you really want. So where did the idea for the Aladdin Factor come from? Like, I mean, a lot of your work kind of is around, let's figure out what we want. Let's ask big questions, and let's go live really amazing lives. Where did the Aladdin Factor, where did that idea come from?
Okay, so I'm doing all these seminars, and at the front end, I'm doing 4 a day, 1,000 a year, and only Tony Robbins are that crazy. But I knew that you got to figure out what, number one, the first question in life is, what do you really, really want? Number 2 is you got to put it in writing. 3, you got to visualize. You got to see it before you get it. That's why Christ said, pray as though the thing for which you're praying has been received. I had to be the world's best-selling author before I was 59 times #1, sold $2 billion worth of $1 billion in licensing, because nobody had ever done licensing. And I said, I want to become the biggest. If you're going to do something, why not become the best at it, right? Now, Aladdin Factor, this has an interesting story. Jack and I are sitting in my jacuzzi, and we're starting to smoke it with when we were trying to sell and everyone was turning us down. I'd written a book called Dare to Win, and we met a woman at Berkeley Press, which became Putnam, which became Random House, but be that as it may. She said, look, you guys, you believe series, sequels and prequels are going to be the future, right? Once you got a name, you want to exploit it. It's called positively exploit it to the cash flow of you and the benefit of the reader, because the reader wants more of you once they find you, right? And
Right.
I follow a lot of people, so I've read 50,000 books, or at least touched all of them. Anyhow, so we're with Berkeley, and the lady says, well, and Jack and I are sitting in a jacuzzi, and we wrote down, we'll take Dare to Win, then we'll do Dare to Lose, and then we'll go to number 14, Dare to Know God. But the third one was Dare to Ask. And she said, no, you can't do Dare to Ask. We'll call it the Aladdin Factor, because the Aladdin movie was coming out, and Robin Williams is still one of my heroes, even though he's passed away because he's tormented. But I won't go there. But the point is, we wrote this, and what happens is they came back to us. We had the number one and we had the Dare to Win was right behind Chicken Soup 1. And Berkeley comes back and says, we got to have that book, and we got to have it right now. And your contract says we can ask for it in 2 months. I go to Jack and say, they're going to sue us to oblivion. They said, if we don't have this in 2 months. Jack's exact line again and again is always, well, what are you going to do about it? And I want to cover that in a minute. But I said, Jack, we're 50-50 on this. If they sue me, they sue you, and we'll both lose. You can't fight these giant publishers who are omniscient and oligarchical, I guess. Anyhow, he said, what are you going to do? So I said, well, I'll interview the 101 best askers by telephone. I'd just done that. When Chicken Soup originally came out, the publishers used to take a book and not publish it for 2 years. Talk about dumbass squared, right? They're the big word is antediluvian. They're before the flood, right? They're sort of before the flood in a lot of their thinking in the publishing business. They're not up to date. That's why I had to create a publishing company that was, the Hawaiian term is akamai. It knows what to do and it clicks. Anyhow, so I interviewed the 101 best guys because chiropractic was one of the places. I got 3 honorary doctorates out of 10 in chiropractic, and all the doctors, 77,000 knew me. They see 25 million patients a month. And I said, wow, I'll just I interviewed all the chiropractors on how to do $1 million practice, because Bill Clinton had taken away all their insurance money and they didn't know what to do. And all these guys were running a cash practice where you pay $25 or $50 or $100 for an adjustment. We're making it, and they had little simple ideas. And I interviewed them all in a week. I said, Jack, I could do the same thing for Aladdin. And I interviewed all the superstar askers in America, and then we orchestrated and organized it with a little genie in a bottle, because we knew Robin Williams' movie was going to, it made like 50 million the first weekend or some crazy number like that. And we did it, and then the book sold 3.6 million, and Berkeley was exceedingly happy, and so were we. But boy, did it sidetracked us, because we were already doing the second helping of Chicken Soup, which we're number 1 and number 2 for 58 weeks in a row because of a different reason, which I will tell you in 1 second. I said I'd get back to it. So this is a time of OJ trial. Are you old enough to remember the OJ trials?
Oh yeah. Okay,
so the OJ trials owned the media, the front of news stations, ABC, NBC, CBS, every newspaper, Wall Street Journal, everything.
It was everywhere all the time. You couldn't leave. You couldn't avoid it. It was everywhere.
Right. So Jack, we meet 3 times a week when we weren't talking and writing on all the books we're writing on. And he said, so what are you going to do about it? I said, Jack, it's we, not me, right? But I'm the promoter, right? I only do 4 things right. I really speak pretty well. I write pretty well. I'm a heck of a promoter, but I also see holes in markets that nobody else sees for myself and all the people we work with, all the companies I'm part of, and all the books I write with other people. I say everyone's got a book they could sell millions of if they just could see what I could see. They can't go here because they haven't, right? The inner work is what most people don't do. Christ said, totally. Kingdom of heaven is within, but it shows up out here. Deepak Chopra tells me, look, if I cut into your mind as a neurosurgeon, I can't see your dad's image in your head. I can't see the car you got. I can't see the house, the kids, your desires or dreams. They're out here somewhere in the cosmos. Would you agree with that?
Totally, completely.
Yeah, there's no images visible. It's sort of amazing. Anyhow, I said, Jack, I solved it already. He said, what did you do? I said, I wrote Judge Ito, and I said, look, Judge, you got these people sequestered for 6 months. They can't go anywhere. They can't watch TV, read a newspaper, talk to their wives, or use a telephone. I got a book that has no stories about OJ in it. You read it this weekend and have your wife read it, and then tell me what you want. Well, he calls me on Monday and says, Mark, I said, do you want 12 books? He said, no. I want I said, what do you want? He said, I want 13. I said, why? He said, we got a extra juror in case somebody breaks a leg, gets sick, or dies. So for 6 months, everybody's walking into the jury stand like this. We were the bestseller of all times because all it takes to get rich is one idea different than anyone else, one possibility different than anyone else, one thought form that nobody else ever saw, one connection that no one else saw that it is waiting for you. Does that make sense?
That is, well, it makes total, but people aren't, they're not thinking like you. They're not going, well, first of all, they're not thinking about how do I get to judge, and if I have the book, they're sequestered. What a great gift though for you, right? They're reading things that are improving their lives while they're sequestered. So that's just awesome in who you are as a person. Right. But then the promotion side, so you're helping people, the promotion side kicks in. And to your point, on media everywhere, you've got your book out in front of just the world. I mean, it's not just, and people are watching, this was a worldwide thing. It wasn't just, our country. I mean, it's everywhere. What a brilliant, promotion. That is such a great story.
But let's bottom line it for you and everybody listening.
Okay.
The best promotion hasn't been made yet. The best sale hasn't been made yet. The best marketing idea hasn't even been conceived of. And that's why I'll keep going to Aladdin. Nobody can go to the moon, Brett. Who the hell you think you are? I'm NASA. I've been doing this 54 years. I've squandered $2 billion a year and done jack zero.
Right.
By the way, I'm not shouting at you personally. I'm just saying that's what they say.
You're completely wrong. I am Elon's big. Any person that wakes up and says, "I'm going to make us a multiplanetary species," that's my mission. I'm rooting that guy on. Right. I'm Team Elon all the way. So when you think about, did this shape anything financially for you as you're going through, you've had some rejection and through that all came massive, tremendous success in a lifestyle and an empire. How do you relate some of that as you're making these investments? Is there any correlation to the way you think about financial risk as a result of having maybe more rejection than most? I haven't heard of 144 turndowns and then turned this amazing empire. Is there you relate any of that to anything financial, like in terms of risk?
Oh, by the way, we were at total risk. Here we're signing up to sell a book that isn't going to come out for 2 years. We've sold it. We've finished it. And that's why I had to go to the chiropractors, because what you do is, here's how you got to look at it from my point of view. You know in mathematics, because you're good at math, a negative times a negative equals a
positive, right? Negative goes the other way.
Yeah, a negative times a negative equals positive. Negative. So I am the spokesperson at that time for American Red Cross. Liddy Dole was head of it, and brilliant woman, would have been a great president, I think. Anyhow, she said, "Hey, Mark, you have all these crazy cockamamie ideas. We're out of blood, and there's no such thing as false blood. There's no doctor. We got the best doctors in the world. I'm not questioning the quality of our medical and PhD. They're smart, but we cannot make blood." Right? The only blood, if you or your kid or your wife or your dad needs blood, they got to have a compatible blood. That's it. There's no substitute. So she said, "I need blood." I said, "Well, let's go to the medical doctor." She said, "They've already vetoed it, so I can't." I said, "Well, good. I'll go to the chiropractors. Chiropractors just lost all their insurance. We need to reactivate the patient." So back then, remember, this is 94 or 5, and emails just started, but I had every email of 77,000 doctors. They all knew me because I did every one of their trainings on how to build $1 million practice. And we sold those tapes. I made the tapes by interviewing 21 guys that did $1 million with one idea each. And wow. One guy was in Colorado because I was a professor out at CU for a while. Anyhow, but the Dennis Nicotau in Denver, the biggest practice there, said, "Look, all I do is carry rubber bands around, Mark." And I'm sitting in the airport and they say, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm a chiropractor." I said, "Explain that." I said, "I take a rubber band and I put it around their finger like this until it becomes a tourniquet and then it starts turning color." Brett, what color does it turn? Go fast. What color?
Oh, yeah. Purple.
And then what?
I think black.
And then what?
It falls off.
How the hell do you know that? See, but everybody, no one taught you that. Never. And yet you know exactly what happens. That's what happens when you're subluxated. And he says, "So what I do is I take the rubber band off." Now, here's the next 3 questions he asked, because everything's a question. That's why Crystal and I wrote this Ask book. Whoops. Looks like that. Ask, the bridge from your dreams to your destiny. Because if you learn to ask, you win the world. So can a medical doctor get rid of a subluxation? Yes or no?
I don't know what a subluxation is, but I'm going to say...
It means your spine's out of alignment.
Maybe, but not really. I think you got to go to the person that the chiropractor's got to do. That's the person.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
A PT can't do it. A nurse can't do it. Only a chiropractor could do it. So therefore, he built this giant practice where everybody comes and all he does is carries rubber bands in his pocket. Well, every doctor started to carry rubber bands and got giant practices. And I sold $3 million worth of tapes. So yeah, I was out of money. But I created a new product in 1 week by calling 21 doctors that I knew. You can do that in every industry. Let's go back to what you said to begin with. There's more turmoil. There's more chaos. Everybody that can think right? We're finishing a book right now called Proverbs, which is 31 chapters in the middle of the Bible, and we're just extricating that with a chiropractor, as it turns out. Dr. Jerry Fox, my friend, 40 years, he did it, and I said, this book will blow up. We're going to sell tens of millions of copies. It just because no one's ever done that. They always do the 4 Gospels, but they've never done Proverbs. And what he's saying is read one a day for 31 days and get wise. What is there better than wisdom? Solomon got wisdom and then got to $4 trillion, got famous, is still remembered 5,000 years later, 6,000 years later, whatever the time is. The point is, same thing here. All I did is went to the wisest doctors. You can go to the wisest anything. And I don't care if you're a machinist. I don't care if we just finished this book. A guy made 17 million using the same principle. He is a air conditioning guy, and all he did is learn how to sell air conditioning. Made 17 million his first year by hiring all the other guys to do the work. He sold it by interviewing all the best air conditioning guys. Everyone can. This isn't a maybe. This is a guarantee if you decide to do it. That's a good title, isn't it? Fetching Millions.
It is so good.
Yeah, because we believe. I'm a Horatio Alger Award winner, which means I came from rags to riches, been a little excessively philanthropic. But 35,000 kids get scholarships from us, and we all spend a week together with the who's who. But we say, look, you get an academic scholarship, a trade scholarship, or a tech scholarship. We need all 3 of those in America today. We don't have enough tech. We're building $7 trillion worth of hard buildings. Like I live in Arizona in Scottsdale. We're doing a biography on the biggest guy ever. He's doing a $200 billion Taiwanese semiconductor plant where one chip is 1/80th the thickness of your hair, Brett.
It is so wild. It's so wild, and I love that you're saying that the 3 different. I love the 3 scholarships, by the way. What a gift. In the trades today, by the way, the trades are overlooked. To your point, you're an AC person. I've got a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 12-year-old, and I tell them, I said, don't sleep on the trades as a business to go into. It's a wonderful business today that is going to be needed because we're building so much stuff. Whether that's AC, electrical, roofing, that is needed more than ever today, and especially on the technology side. But I love the book that you're taking an entrepreneur and getting people to realize that, number one, that they've got more, and their story, to your point, could sell millions, but they got to ask different questions.
That's right. But let's define an entrepreneur, because a lot of people say, well, is this word or that way? No. An entrepreneur finds a problem. Now, remember, there's 8.4 billion of us, so there's more problems than ever before. So find a problem that you're supposed to solve it, scale it, make a vast profit, and then be charitable. That's it. It's that simple. Everybody's got problems, and they're mental, they're social, they're physical, they're spiritual, whatever they are. All you got to do is look at your own problem. God gives you problems to solve, as far as I'm concerned. Now, the people who don't believe in God, I feel sorry for them, because you go to nothingness, and that's not like a cool idea. When the game's over, eternity's a long time. You don't want to be there, I don't think. But everyone gets their choice, right?
That is very well said. It is absolutely true. So I want to go to you're a master storyteller, and you've said stories create wealth.
They do.
Why do you think that stories are such a powerful economic tool? And why do people underestimate them?
Well, first of all, because I'm dealing with a lot of companies that are going IPO now, and they're saying, help me tell my story better. The story's got to be heart-touching, soul-penetrating, and emotive. But these guys come out with these PowerPoints and say, here's how much money you're going to make. Well, money is interesting, but if you can get them with a story that something's going to change, now you're home. And I told you one of the 4 marketplaces I did was multi-level marketing. And I'm doing this one meeting, and these 2 ladies come up to me and say, look, we got the product that's changing the world right now. America's constipated because they're so stressed. And I went, I know that because I did a PBS show, and it scared the crap out of me, and my ascending colon went like that. and I didn't go to the bathroom for a week. And boy, if you want to get scared and your system's backed up, you get scared. I'm going to be as gentle as I can with this. But anyhow, they did a product. It was called Enrich International. They're gone now because they sold to Europe and they changed the formulation, screwed it up. But they had a product called Life Fiber. I made $3 million in 1 year selling that because I would talk about it in every seminar. I said, look, if you eat 3 meals a day, you're supposed to go to the bathroom 3 meals a day. 3 choo-choo trains in, 3 choo-choo trains out. It's pretty simple. That's a story. And everybody bought the story. So I'm doing Mortgage Superstars, and every year I did them for like 20 years. The Jones, Deborah and Doug Jones, husband and wife, owned this company. We did ski trips every year in Aspen, which that's why you got to have a book to get famous and speak. It's just so much fun. So, but then they also had a Puerto Vallarta or a Latin American trip. We're down in Latin America and we're out on a yacht, and I'm telling this story to Doug and Deborah before I'm going to talk. And she said, you ain't not going to believe this, but my little son, Andrew, I've got the permission to tell the story. He's 6 years old. He goes to the bathroom once every 10 days. And sometimes he has an accident in class and it's totally embarrassing and he hates it and can't handle it. I said, well, I got the solution. Come back to my room. And it's Life Fiber. And she looks at it and says, ugh, looks like sand. I said, it tastes pretty good. Here, Andrew said, he called me Uncle Mark because remember I worked for him for 6 years since before he was born. So said, mix it up, I'll chug it and you chug it and see how it is. Well, the next morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, he's pounding on my door. Uncle Mark. It was that long. Because a man needs 50 grams of fiber a day, a woman 35. Now that's the story, but that story sold and made me $3 million. I didn't own the company. I was just I became their presidential, won all their contests. But my goal was I didn't think anyone should be constipated then, now, or ever.
And you created the story around constipation. I mean, so you've used stories though throughout to educate someone, help them, and then ultimately sell, right? I mean, stories do sell. Right.
And you only need a paragraph to do a good story. Like right now, because we're concentrating on just doing biographies, we only are selling them to the ultra rich, that cent millionaire and billionaire class, and they cost $200,000. But I said, look, a biography is the only lasting gift of love and legacy they give your family, your friends, the future in the world that's permanent. Now you think because you got $100 million and you're going to go give it to your kids, they're going to remember you. They're not going to remember you. 2 generations from now, you're dead, gone. Look at the people who wrote their biographies and wrote their expectations and the values they had and their kids had to get to be part of the family. The Purdue family, which my biography was written by Mitzi Purdue. So, it's right here. So and you can get it online. It's called Legacy. Now, you know Mitzi Purdue is Purdue Chicken. Do you ever get your chicken at Costco, the pre-cooked chicken?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've had many.
Yeah, it's $4.99. If you buy it uncooked, it's $11.99. Same chicken. Well, here's Mitzi. She's 84 years young, looks great, and wow. Her company does 22 million chickens a week at Costco. And she asked to write my biography, which we published, of course. So I believe everyone's got to have a biography. She's got a biography. She did one on her daddy, who started the Sheraton hotel chain. This fits for your listeners. During the Depression, Ernest Henderson started it during the Depression. He said, we're going to have a hotel where I take care of the people so the staff takes care of them. We'll have free meals every day. That's exactly the same thing that's happening with John Paul DeJoria, right? He feeds all of his people at all of his. Here's a guy homeless twice, so he knows what it's like to be hungry. Now he's worth $8.4 billion, but he's got 37,000 beauty salons in 103 countries. He did Patron, and everybody said nobody needs a tequila, especially from a barber, which is pretty demeaning to a guy that's the most powerful entrepreneur in America and my close friend for 40 years. Anyhow, so he did 100 million bottles a month. And then JP calls me up, and he's on a cruise with his best friend, is RFK Jr., and he says, Mark, for 40 years, he came in and talked at my mega book seminars and my Enlighten the Millionaire seminars. And you can't pay a billionaire, but he was my friend, and he talked, but he said, I want something. I said, what do you want? He said, I got to bring my entourage. I said, tell me, because it cost me $500 to feed these guys for 3 days, right? Because we are in the VIP session. They're all getting steaks and everything. He said, I think 20 will come. I go, holy cow, okay. Well, it's a great deal for me. Anyhow, he's in Greece with RFK Jr. and says, I've written my book. I said, JP, the best thing is I'm a publisher now. I want to publish your book no matter what. He sends it to me. It's 19 pages. I said, JP, I love you. I love you, pal. But that ain't a book. In our business, we call that a chapter. And again, Jack's type question. So what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to interview you, right? To do a biography, just to get the foundation, I need 4 2-hour interviews where I go deep from beginning to end and what's working. Well, it turns out that he, like the guy who's building Taiwanese semiconductor, don't have a little, they got a lot. And I said, that's why we do sequels and prequels, because you got too many stories and they're phenomenal. They're not even like, can I do one?
Of course, I was going to say, that guy's story is incredible. I mean, from what he did in Palmetto, amazing, but then the Patron story and how he did it with getting it in the different, getting in the wine sets. It's a spirit, not with the liquor. That guy's story is incredible. I would love to hear a story.
So first of all, I want you all to go get the book. It comes out April 3rd, and some of you are going to be listening to it after that, but order it now, pre-order it at Amazon or wherever fine books are sold. But JP is on vacation and he goes to Barbuda, which had got wiped out by the hurricane. And he said, somebody should do something, but the government's not smart enough, so I'll do something. Remember, government's not smart. Entrepreneurs are smart. Entrepreneurs solve problems. We need you watching to master entrepreneurship, salesmanship, marketing for you, and whatever your area, whatever your zone, whatever your category is. But he hires the top ichthyologist, fish doctor in the world, Dr. Brosnan, brings her down there and said, let's make it hurricane proof. They made it, they raised it 19 feet. They made it so hurricanes can't defend. They brought back the turtles, the fish, the 100% employment, made it the best island ever. And now he's doing the whole Caribbean and making hurricane proof. Nobody ever thought of that because people, I got to be careful here. People in the environment go, well, this is all theory. It's not practice. You take a guy like him as an entrepreneur, I'm all practice. I'll listen to theory, but I got to reduce it to practice. And that's what an entrepreneur does. He or she reduces to practice, and they do it young. Can I do one more story?
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, I love this. It's so good.
So where you live, 3 of my grandkids live in Gilbert, and our little 12-year-old last year was student body president at the learning, the learning school there, and it's just great. And 800 little girls go, Everett. He's very handsome, I got to admit, and he's gifted in all the advanced classes, but he's a superstar basketball. He does 100 free throws a day, consistent. And so I'm not thinking, Brett, that he had an answer. I said, Everett, what do you want to be when you grow up? He said, oh, that's easy. I said, really? He said, at 18, I'm going to play for the Phoenix Suns because, we're here and that's the big team, and I'll make $30 million a year. I said, whoa. I said, then what? He said, I get goosebumps telling you. He's my grandson, but I love this kid. He said, at 35, I'm going to manage the Phoenix Suns. I said, and then, not thinking he had an answer, he said, at 45, I'm buying them. I said, son, do you know that's $4.8 billion? This isn't chump change, and Grampy's not helping. He said, don't worry, Grandpa. I'll have the money by then.
I love that.
And he will.
I love
sure.
that.
I mean,
it's the power. It's the power of asking the question. You tell a kid everything's possible, and for some reason, most people, over the course of their lives, they lose that ability to dream.
Exactly. That's why we wrote Ask, because we said, look, it's squished out of you. Your mother says, you ask too many questions. Then you go to school and you raise your hand, the teacher doesn't know the answer, says, you just look that up, right? And then you go in the military, and the military says, no, you just be obedient to whatever the general says or whoever is the leader, right? And we need more people to think outside the box, as they say, which is a redundant cliche. But I'm saying go into the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th dimension of your awareness, because all of us are limited by, I only know what I know. I'm a dentist. I can fix teeth. No, I go to a dentist now that's figured out how to open up your airways so you don't have sleep apnea. Nobody ever looked at it that way. It's an airway problem. It's not a sleep problem, right? Your airways contract over time because I guess God built us to live 40 years but Moses did 3 shots at 40. He did 120 and his eye was not weak nor breath bated nor any guile in his mouth. I mean, the boy was a healthy camper is what it meant. I hope you're okay with all this. I am cool.
You're going where I want to go. I want to go to the psychology and the millionaire thinking, right? You wrote the book, Cracking the Millionaire Code. You studied self-made millionaires. I want to talk about the difference between people who have income. Because I think a lot of people watching this, they've got income, right? They've got maybe even high income, but they don't have real wealth, right? They actually, it never translates. So what's the belief that stops people, right? They're making $200,000 a year. They're making $800,000 a year, but yet their wealth is doing this, even though their income is doing that. What's
First
the
of all,
belief there?
Yeah, one of the books we're doing is Richest Man in Babylon 2.0 with John Anton, the guy who owns Anton Sports. If you got sports outfits in Arizona or nursing clothes, he makes them. And he said, look, Mark, I love this book and it made me rich because it teaches the 12 principles. But the first one is, doesn't matter how much you make, how much are you saving? And then of that saving, how much are you investing?
Yeah, part of what you earn is yours to keep.
Exactly. That's the first principle, but we've rewritten it in English now. And we start the book in it's such a cool book, and they'll be out in the spring. I am, forgive me for loving my book so much, but this book, we started in Babylon, Nebraska. And
Okay.
there is no such place. But the point is, this guy goes in and does a seminar and teaches those principles in modern English, and everybody's resisting. And at the end of the week, everyone believes they can be a millionaire because they said, wait, I'm only earning $500 a week, but I'm now saving, 10% of it, 50. And if I keep doing that and then invest it wisely. And then the other thing, in answer to your question, everybody has to ultimately become an owner of something. Everybody has to become an owner of something. Now, I own a lot of businesses, but the fact of the matter, and you'd say, well, you don't have to work. Look, I wrote this book with Art Linkletter. Do you remember that name? Are you old enough to remember Art Linkletter?
I remember Art's name, yes.
Kids say the darndest thing. People are a funny house party. One of the first billionaires. But I wrote this when he was 96 and no publisher wanted it. They said nobody 96, is going to sell a book. Well, we sold a heck of a lot. How to make the rest of your life the best of your life. We said, don't retire from something to nothing. Retire from something to something better. And now this week we're doing one with Dr. Jeff Life. He's the 88-year-old guy that's buff, who's a medical doctor who at 60 had a massive heart attack. They put in 7 stents, right? And then he started exercising. Now he exercises because what we're learning about longevity is I'm going too far with this, I'm sorry. But there's chronology, how old are you and what's your age? There's biology, how good have you taken care of your body? Like I take 78 herbs and vitamins at breakfast in the morning. And then third, what is your functional health? How good are you with your oxygen? And we live here in Arizona, but I climb mountains here. And I've also climbed Machu Picchu and Fuji and Kilimanjaro and Whitney here in America. So, I'm in really good shape for a 78-year young person.
Yeah. What I'm hearing you say though, Mark, I think so much of it starts in our mind, right? It's in our mind first, all of it. Well, so what's the internal, when we think about our finances, you often say that wealth begins long before the money shows up.
Right.
What's that first shift, right? Because everything you've talked about so far, it starts here and then we're going to see it in the real world. Where do we got to start with our financials? What's the first internal shift we've got to make?
I love that question. If you're going to do affirmations, which you become what you say to yourself and believe, think about, act upon, it becomes you, is the first affirmation is, I am rich. And you need to say it 50 to 100 times a day. And then if you do a subset, I learned this from John D. Martini, who learned it from Dr. Paul Bragg, the guy with apple cider vinegar, which is another little product that made billions of dollars, just one product. But Paul Bragg said, I'm a genius and I'm applying my wisdom. If you say that to yourself 50 times a day for a month, you're going to become a genius in whatever your zone is. And every zone needs a genius. We don't need stupidos. We don't need foolish people like Solomon said. We need geniuses that are applying. I'm a genius and I apply my wisdom. And I'm rich and a genius and apply my wisdom. And I'm going to get massively wealthy. It just, and then you can do a lot of good because there's a lot of people that can't do it. So look, I'm making up the number now, but let's say 10 or 15% of us can really do it. We create that wealth. We can create fundamental abundance and make everybody physically, mentally, emotionally better off and no one worse off for the first time in history. And it's because of technology that we're getting free. Because of technology, the wheel, you could start to transport. Because of the railroad, Carnegie, who's one of my heroes, created that. And now we're going to have floating cars starting at the end of this year, thanks to Tesla. And if you've seen them, you go, holy cow, do you understand? There'll be no more traffic jams.
It's completely wild. And so you're saying, I couldn't agree with this more. I've lived it, that it is all here. What we put in here, what we say, the affirmations. And there's this anti-affirmation vision board movement with the quote influencers online. And I'm one that says, look, vision boards changed my life. Like writing affirmations down and putting what I wanted for my future on a wall across from my desk that I stared at every day. all became a reality for me because I was staring at it. And once I accomplished it all, I kept it and put up a new one, right? And what am I now thinking about and what's driving my life? I couldn't agree more. I think it starts with, do we believe it? Are we actually thinking about it? And even maybe that, do we even know what we want? I think most people can't actually define what they actually want.
100% correct. When I was doing all those giant seminars, and we still do some seminars, I would have everybody pair bond, two people, and 50 times in a row they'd go, Brett, what do you really want? And you'd start, Brett, what do you really want? And each one's got to be a new answer. So you'd start, well, I want a car, I want a house, I want new rugs, I want new windows, I want to be financially free, I want to have 100,000, a million, 10 million, 100 million, whatever it is. But by the time you get to 50, you're deep into it. And I've had a medical doctor come up to me and said, that was more important than all the medical school I ever went to, because for the first time I found out what my true passion is, what my right livelihood is. Like, my right livelihood is communicating, writing, speaking, turning on other people to the inspiration of their aspiration to add a little perspiration to get to their destination. I don't know what their destination is, but they, at depth, we believe, and the reason we wrote Ask is that everybody's got a destination that is magnificent, that's fun, that's going to be joy. Because you say, well, when I get 10 million, then I'll be free. No, you're not free unless you know where you're going and what you want to do with it. Because you go buy an island, I owned a $4 million house in Kona, Hawaii. I loved it. But, what am I going to drink pina coladas every night and watch the sunset? Not me. That's boring. After you do it, that's called a vacation. A week, 2 weeks. I get bored quick. I need to use my mind. Like you and I we've covered a smorgasbord of topics, but It's all been linear enough to understand, hasn't it?
Oh, it's completely, there's principles in everything, right? In every single thing from promotion to wealth to what you ask. You've given so much good here. I want to go to, I've got my analogy I always use when I'm teaching at one of our events is I've got friends that are really intelligent, like genius level, zero wealth. I've got friends that are, so far down on the intelligence spectrum, it's scary, ridiculously wealthy, right? So I have never drawn a connection between intelligence and raw wealth. I just haven't seen it in my life. Why do you think so many smart people struggle financially? Knowing kind of what I just said. Well, first of all, has that been your life experience? You've seen maybe people that aren't really gifted super achieve. People super gifted, they don't do anything.
Well, the difference is, do you have a mastermind? One of the principles that Andrew Carnegie taught Napoleon Hill, and Andrew Carnegie, which here's what most people don't know, and I did create, as you probably know, Chicken Soup for the Soul Bible, and we sold 70,000 a week at Walmart, and my publisher said, that'll never work. I said, sign this. I'm going to go to Thomas Nelson and get them to publish it, and they did, and we went crazy with it. We're doing something new now with the Bible, which is even going to be more crazier, but because it's infinite markets. But here's the point. Andrew Carnegie's reading the New Testament and said, holy cow, Jesus, now remember, what I said is you got to go to a higher dimension of thinking. You read the words and you got them and you understand them and you think you're smart. You're not smart. You're smart, but you're not wise. We're talking about how do you get to wisdom? Remember Solomon, go for wisdom and you get everything else, right? The point is, he said, what is the principle? The principle is he had 12 disciples before he did his first miracle, water into wine at Cana, and 12. He said, wait a second, I'll get 12. Andrew Carnegie's first mastermind partner is Charlie Schwab Senior, 3 generations ago. Second is Frick, and I've been to the Frick Museum in New York. I've been to Frick House in Pittsburgh, because I'm a scholar in these guys. I want to know what the hell they really did. But he had, I can name all 12, but you don't need that. What you need to do is say, hey, wait a second. The guy with a lot of money and a lot of self-inspiration to destination action, he needs to put those geniuses together and get them to take just a little piece, because they'll all do it and go create new things, which is what I'm doing now. This sounds braggadocious, but we're working with the top guys that used to be with Microsoft for 25 years, head of innovation. And they're all coming to partner with me because we're going to sell books to the whole world. Now, you say, well, that's a heck of a destination. That's an interesting goal, but why you? Because the publishing industry is not thinking like Mark thinks. And we got 17% of the market. We sell all the books in London. We sell all the books in South Africa, all the books in Australia. Big deal. That's 17% of the market. I want all 8.4 billion reading it. And should somebody read this stuff and listen to the stuff we're saying now in Swahili and Hindi, Urdu and Cantonese, Telugu? There's 647 languages in the world. And Hobby Lobby, who we had dinner with, the Green the other night, and he's putting all those languages with you saw The Chosen, I hope?
I have not seen that.
Oh, everybody's got to watch The Chosen. It's the story of how
I'm taking notes.
Really, Chosen. It's done by Angel Studios out of Utah originally. And Dallas Jenkins shows you the struggles this guy went through. And it'll illuminate. You're gonna be a binge watcher, I predict, everybody watching The Chosen. But he's now taking it into every language around the world. So it's the first time people are going to really know the know. But I'm saying what he's doing for a movie, I want to do for books. There's nobody. Look, I was on the biggest show in 200 million people in Africa just now. And that lady says, look, everybody speaks Swahili and you won't put it in Swahili. I said, no, I'll put it in Swahili because all these people that we're publishing books for say, I want to be New York Times bestseller. I said, wait a second. Do you want to help the most amount of people that maybe are in Africa that'll never make the New York Times bestseller list? Or do you want to be just in America and sell this many books when I can take you around the world and sell that many books? So, you mean I don't have to be New York Times bestseller? Well, you are. I said, yeah, but I didn't have this idea then yet. I'm transcending myself because you are supposed to forever transform and renew your mind and be a bigger, better, stronger, healthier, smarter, wiser, more money-making person.
Mark, it is just listening to you. I'm getting so fired. I'm taking notes. I'm ready to flip my desk over and go, into my day. And you're so inspirational. And I think people watching this and listening to this are going to say, gosh, that works for Mark, right? That works for Brad. But they didn't grow up in my town. They haven't had my situation. They've almost got what I'm going to call anti-wealth beliefs, right? And they're running around with it without even realizing it. Like, what do you think the most common ones you see people that they need to free themselves of to live their best lives? Just their limiting beliefs that they carry. And you've taught, millions and millions of people across the world. When you look at all that in this body of work of yours and you say, what are the biggest limiting beliefs you see people carrying right now?
So back to Ask, we teach their 7 limiting beliefs. And we did the whole chapter on it because everyone's got to know what they are. And we're putting it into the movie that I told you we'd talk about. But we say, look, unworthiness is it. I'm not worthy of being rich, they think. And I want all of you to know, you got to tell yourself 50 times a day, back to affirmations, I'm worthy, I'm important, I'm here to make a difference. And you are. If you try to kill yourself, we have 3,000 people committing suicide a day because they don't feel worthy. And it's not, by the way, let me do it from my point of view only, and you're going to object if you're really feeling ready to commit suicide. But the fact of the matter is you are important. God, you wrote in the book of life that you are going to come here and do something. And that's why we're doing a book on death. We're doing 4 books on death and dying right now. It's fascinating. And I want to tell you a little bit about those if you want. But when you die early and go to the other side, Big G tells you, whoops, you're not supposed to be here yet. And you say, well, no, the music's better, the color's better, the sound's better, I want to stay. So no, and you go back into your crown chakra, and you're back in life, and you got to do what you're supposed to do. But that comes back to the lack of worthiness that so many people feel. Next is naivete. They don't watch your show enough to buy the story. Remember what I said, not only did I listen to audio tapes when I went bankrupt around the clock when I was in the car, but I also went to 2 Sunday churches that taught the same thing. And I dragged all my friends, most of whom didn't get it. And it's not that it wasn't there to get, it's that they weren't ready to say, I accept to see what my greatness is, what my destiny is. Next is self-doubt. I couldn't do what Mark does. No,
I don't know if I can do it.
Let me just do the opposite. I want everyone to outsell me. If you can outsell me, go do it. I want somebody to sell 1 billion books. It's going to happen. I can't tell you who and how and when, but it's a 4-minute mile story with, you remember who ran the 4-minute mile?
Roger Bannister.
Bingo, A+, you're an A+. But the week after he ran it, 117 people ran it because it broke the image. I'm here to break the nobody can sell more than you. No, somebody's going to sell. I want fear. The underlying fear that you're not able to, fear is false evidence appearing real, then pattern paralysis, because you got to recognize you got a pattern, and the pattern is poverty. And Reverend Ike used to say, look, I could take somebody out of Harlem, put them in a Fifth Avenue mansion, and in a week they would make the Fifth Avenue mansion Harlem. I can take somebody from Fifth Avenue mansion, put them in Harlem, and in a week they'll have it become a mansion. It's state of mind, state of consciousness, state of awareness, state of thinking, all of which you in control. But you got to read positive stuff like I write or listen to or make on YouTube. And then disconnection. Most people are so disconnected, they're disconnected the wrong way. Like we just read Charlie Kirk's book, and he said, you got to stop in the name of God, it's called. And Charlie and I are friends before he got dusted, but too bad. But he's become bigger in death than in life as a martyr. But the point is, he's saying you got to take a Sabbath. You got to disconnect from your social media. Don't, so on Saturday night at 6 o'clock, we shut off our phone, shut off the TV, shut off all messages until 6 o'clock Sunday night. And nobody's died, nobody's gotten hurt, nobody's feeling worse. But we feel right now, for you and I are making this on a Monday. I don't know when it's going to get aired, but I think you can see my energy is back at 100%.
How long have you been doing what I'm going to call the digital Sabbath? How long have you been turning that on? How long have you been practicing that?
We've only been doing it about a month, but it really, everyone needs to do it. And then be with people, because you want to get reconnected. Remember, we said seventh problem is you're disconnected and you're not present time available. And we need to be present to other people. Like unless you tell me I've only looked away to pick up books. I've been present time available with you 100%.
And that's what's lost today is presence. One of our good buddy of mine wrote a book called The Business Owner's Dilemmas. Ollie Nasser's his name. And he says the greatest gift that you can ever give someone is the gift of your presence. Just talk when you're out at dinner. But when we go to dinner, what do we see? We see everybody looking down at their phone and they're out at dinner. I'm like, well, what are you doing? Like, we're here at Mark. If I go to dinner, I want to talk to you. I'm there to experience it. I want to be in it. I want to help add value. But I only do that if I'm present, not when I'm distracted, looking at my phone, staring at social media. It's so, I love those questions are so valuable, and everyone needs to, number one, go get your book. When is it coming out? When is that book coming out? The Ask?
Oh, no, Ask is out right now. And what we did is.
When did that come out, by the way? When did it come out?
A short time ago. So what happened is at Crystal, we only do stuff, 3 things you got to do in a book. It's got to be original. It's got to be transformative, not to you, the writer. It will be because it transforms you, but it's got to be transformative to the reader, right? So they go, wow, like what you did with our Aladdin Factor. This is the advanced Aladdin Factor. And then number 3, it's got to be inevitable such that, like, what did you do? The minute you got on, we booked the show, you said, that book changed me, and you told all your team about it. That's inevitable. It's called, in the book business, we call it pass along value. In other words, our average chicken is read by 12 people. So I've had 1 billion plus readers minimum, because we have ministers we go to 3 churches, but we go to the Healing Church once a month here. And that lady's forever using our story and saying, came out of chicken soup of the Christian soul or the prisoner soul or the teenage soul. And the people go out and buy the book like crazy. So the books are still selling. And book sales are way, way up again because people are starting to get tired of social media, which is really exciting to me. Because have you ever been at a bookstore or a library and not met nice people?
It's first of all, it's the most peaceful place ever. You go there, you meet someone who's on your same journey, who's looking for in a way to improve their lives. So no, I'm the guy that goes to the bookstore, gathers everything I'm going to do, and starts sorting through it, and then I act like I'm going to pick, and then I just buy everything and leave. I can't not buy. My wife jokes when I walk around, Mark. I go on vacation. I bring a separate suitcase for books because I'm going to get into stuff, and then I won't read them all. But I just can't not be there with what I need. I'm literally packed. Went to Hawaii for 2 weeks, probably 35 books. And no, I didn't read 35, but I read a lot. But I just don't know what I'm going to need. So I'm that person that you're speaking my language. I am like I bet I've put more money into the things you've written than probably anyone else that's ever interviewed you. I bet I'm that person.
Thank you. But listen, my kids in their shoes, thank you.
Yes. So, Mark, I want to go. So you've helped entrepreneurs, you've helped the chiropractors, you've done so much. I want to think about what's the most overlooked income stream that entrepreneurs and thought leaders are missing. You've been so good with promotion, ideas, stories. What's that income stream that entrepreneurs maybe just don't even think about? you mentioned one, which was you went into licensing game, right? You went and publishing and all these other, tons of different companies. When you see the average entrepreneur today, what are they overlooking?
Let's talk about licensing.
Okay.
So one weekend, I'm reading 2 biographies in a weekend. I read George Lucas and Steven Spielberg's. Both of them said the same thing, and it just, the lights went off for me. They'd made $800 million on ET, which I'm sure you saw or your kids saw, but they made $1.5 billion in licensing, twice as much basically. And I went, holy cow! I went into Jack. I said, Jack, we're going into licensing. Jack's correct statement was, what do you know? I said, nothing. But what we learned from Earl Nightingale was, well, I learned it actually from general systems theory when I was in graduate school with Bucky Fuller, but there's a circle around this thing called licensing, and I'm on the outside, but I'm going to be on the inside, and it only takes a year. You study an hour every day, 7 days a week, and then you go to their meetings, whatever the meetings are. I went to city meetings, state meetings, local meetings, and I had all my questions to ask. And I said, who's the biggest? Who's the best? Why are they? What do they do? What are the zones that they do? Because there's licensing everywhere. Well, licensing is the best business because it's clean, it's neat, you don't get any returns, nothing comes back. Like we licensed with the biggest dog food is Purina, but they had come out with a product, and I just talked. They paid me $20,000 to do a talk with Jay Leno, and they had come out with a product that went up and went down because the dogs hated it. So all of a sudden, the dog food company flies in the Gulf Stream to meet with me, Diamond Pet Foods, and I say, well, look, my little daughter's becoming a vet, and I got 4 dogs and 88 animals in 1 acre. You've got to do 4 things before I'll accept it. Number 1, the dogs have got to like it. All 4 of my dogs got to love whatever you're doing. Next, it's got to be organic. Anyhow, I came up with these ideas, and they said, no one talks to us that way. And then the 4th one was, you got to put one of my books in every package. Well, we sold $157 million worth of dog food a month. We get 15% of it. We don't have to manufacture it. We don't have to package it. We don't have to store it. We don't get returns. And it's just pure cash. There's no better business than licensing. But make yourself, give yourself a brand name. And everybody's a brand. And it's up to you to make your brand take command.
So so licensing, and an example, I can't imagine someone who's thinking, I'm going to go promote books and this media empire through dog food, and somehow you saw the absolute connection. That's remarkable.
Well, I did 101 licensed products. We did $1 billion in 1 year of licensed products. So I really understand. And it is a great, fun, joy. The people in licensing are nice people, and they want new products, but you and I got to come up with them. Remember, the people in an industry can't solve the problem. Let's just do the Ford, GM, and Chrysler and Jeep. They didn't they invented an electric car and killed it. Tesla comes out, and Elon Musk kills the car business and does more than all of them combined because he's saying, I'm going to start at zero. I'm not in the business, so I don't have any of the limitations thinking that they're all stuck with. And now he's creating a car 17 seconds, but he's going to get down to 5 seconds. He'll make a car every 5 seconds and then sell them less than anybody's ever sold a car for, price-wise.
You are such a great storyteller that people could take so much out of that. I love the way you just described how you learn things. Like, hey, I went out, I read these 2 books that gave me the idea. And then I went and spent an hour a day for 365 days to learn every single thing there is about licensing. And then you started applying it. And I just love the way that model you broke down there. Everyone could go take that model and change what they're doing and improve their life on any topic by using what you just outlined right there.
And by the way, I want them to. And if they end up doing a book with me, I'll tell them, hey, here's where your hole is for licensing that no one has ever seen before. I mean, let me just do one example here. Let's see if I can do it. I'm finishing a book that's coming out shortly. Won't be out until spring, called America's Golden Age. And this guy comes who makes hats. And I said, well, let's do American Golden Age hats. And then he came to my office here, and I've got somebody made so much money they gave me a little tetrahedron. It's on my desk over there of gold, real gold, an ounce of gold. And I said, why don't we make a gold pen? Right? I don't know if you can see that or not. It says America's Golden Age.
Oh, yeah.
It's got gold leaf in it. And it really works, and it's a great pen, and everybody wants it. And then we said, well, wait a second. What if we really did it, and we made a whole series of hats, the likes of which no one's ever seen before, like gold hats. So you really start, and then we line extend the products. Well, you can go to americasgoldenage.ai, americasgoldenage.ai, and you buy these pens, and this is a killer business. This is going to make billions of dollars, just an ink pen, because everybody who gets it says, "Oh my God, that is the best ink pen I've ever had." And I never thought that I could. This isn't real gold, but it's gold leaf, and you pay $20 for it. But so what? From my point of view, it's an exceedingly profitable product, and it's fun. I mean, has anyone ever tried to sell you an ink pen before? Probably not. But does it fit the book business? Absolutely. I say go write $1 billion book with your ink pen now.
It is so good to think about the way your mind works around the business of the promotion, to tie it back to the product, to create ancillary products that drive additional revenue. As we're thinking about wrapping up here, and I want you to think about our audience, entrepreneurs. What are the first 3 principles you would want them to internalize? They're leaving here today about money and success. What 3 principles should they just have in their mind when they leave here today?
Okay, first of all, you got to figure out exactly what you want. You got to put it in writing, and you need to spend a little bit of money. I'm not selling journals anymore, but when I sell journals, this is Mark Victor Hansen, pay $50, get it done. So you journal what you want and come up with 10 new things you want each and every day. Like you want 1 customer, 10 customers, 100 customers, 1,000 customers. You want somebody that'll get you the customers if you're not good at getting it. If you can't sell and market, partner with somebody who can sell and market. If you don't have the right idea to build an enormous business, I'm going to find the right person that I can build their business. Like I told you about the joke was colon blow stuff.
So first thing is get a journal, write down 10 things you want every day. First thing.
Yeah, every day for the rest of your life. And keep the journals. I got 50 years of journals, and when we moved from my giant business and warehouse in California, Chris said, "Can we get rid of these?" I said, "Absolutely not. That's my gold mine." I mean, I won't be able to exploit all the ideas I've written down. I've got only John DeMartini and I have over 6,000 wants written down, because you've got, number one, if that's the only one we could cover, what do you really want, and got to have it in writing.
All right, so write down every day 10 things you want every day for the rest of your life. Put it in a journal. What's the second principle you want to instill with them? What do they got to do next? What do they got to internalize?
Who is the who that can do the how that you want done? Like, because we're going to make the first story in Ask is a Fable of Michaela. My wife totally wrote it from her prophetic vision. We've always known we're going to create, we're creating we own Mark Victor Hansen Library, a publishing company.com, but we're created, all right, Crystal Mark Entertainment, and that'll be the first film we make. And we wrote down, who is it that can give us $30 million? Because we want to do 3 all at once, and she's written 3 planes. So I'm showing you that once you write down what you want, then you got to detail the who that can do what you want. And like when I won the Horatio Alger Award, which you get in the Supreme Court, it's the highest award you can get as far as I'm concerned. 10 of us win it. In my class was little unknowns, like a guy named Tom Selleck. I think you know that name. And Philip Anschutz, if you're from Colorado, you know Philip Anschutz. Well, Anschutz owns a value foundation. We're going to go to Phil in a short time because we're friends. We were in the same class, winning in Horatio, and we're going to ask him to invest in this. And whether he does or not doesn't matter. Remember, if it takes me 10 or 100 people, we're going to find somebody to invest in it. That's the point. You got to know that it's done before you start, is what we said. You be at the end before you begin. We know that we're going to make these movies. We've decided we're going to probably make them in Malta is our first decision, Morocco second, Canary Islands a third, Istanbul fourth, because they got castles, and takes place in 1544, where a girl is stuck in a rock quarry. Her parents have been indentured servants. She owes money she doesn't really owe. She teaches a couple people to read, and long story short, the king sees it and says, "Can you make everybody in my kingdom literate?" And then she starts doing that for everyone. It's so heart touching. You go, everyone who reads it says, "Oh man, I need to see that movie." I said, "Yep, that's the point. Remember, it's got to be inevitable."
I could imagine the scene in Malta. I was just in Malta a year ago. I could imagine for the castle scene you want, that is the perfect, there is a perfect picturesque spot for that there. I could imagine
Malta
it right now.
Malta's 120 miles long, if I remember right, the same as Long Island, and yet there's 39 great castles that are well kept. And that's where my hero, the best speaker ever, probably Winston Churchill, went and wrote all of his stuff and did his artwork. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know. I could not, but I could imagine that location to write and think and just be, it is gorgeous. So hold on, I want to go back to the third thing. So the first thing, we're writing it down, 10 things you want every day. Second, we're finding the who. that can end up doing the hows. And what's a third principle you want them to do?
Third, you got to have a mastermind where, like Jack and I were two together, created a third new mind that makes you invincible. In other words, it didn't matter that somebody says stop. That's just pushing a little pressure on you, and you're going to go find a person who'll say yes. You got to have a mastermind where two or more come together in a spirit of cooperative harmony, Andrew Carnegie said, and then you become invincible. He had the spirit that he was going to make America work with the railroads. And here's a guy with a third good education that said, and then I'm going to spend the first half of my life doing the good, second half of my life giving it away to do the most good. And he said, where can I do the most good? He benefacted 4,812 libraries in America because he said, everybody's got to learn to read. Now, the only mistake Andy made, and I'll tell him when I get to heaven if I meet him, I've been to his house at 91st and 5th Avenue in New York. I want everyone to visit. Or if you got a lot real money, go to his castle, 30,000 acres in Dornoch, Scotland. But what Andy should have done is charge $1 for a library card. Then everybody would have one instead of just 1% of us.
So it's just so good. I ask every guest, Mark, 3 quick questions.
Sure.
Same question, right? Best purchase under $200 that's most improved your life recently.
Books.
Any purchase. Books. Okay, I love it. Second question, top 3 books, they can't be yours for this, that had the biggest impact on you. 3 books that had the biggest impact on you.
Obviously, Think and Grow Rich early on, and I've read it a lot of times. And number 2 is Resurrection by Neville. And what Neville says is, obviously the Bible has got to be it would be number 1. I should have put it at number 1, but it takes interpretation of the Bible because there's 4 levels to it. There's the book, there's the words in the book, the understanding, but then the exegesis. What does that mean to you? The exegesis, that's when it matters, but that's why you got to go over it a lot of times. So all of a sudden you go, I get it. I get the parable of the talents. I get how that operates with me and my kids. I get it. It takes a while to get it, so to speak.
I love that. And I'm most excited for you to answer the third question, which is you get to talk to your 18-year-old Mark, knowing everything that you know today. And you got up to 60 seconds to talk to him. What do you tell 18-year-old Mark?
Well, the cliche is think bigger, but I didn't know how. I now written a book, How to Think Bigger, Never Thought You Could Think, and it's a great bestseller. But the point is to think bigger is get mentors early. Like at the time I was 18, at 16, I saw the Beatles. I started a rock group. We were making $5,000 a night. I didn't understand I could go to the next level if I got a real mentor. I didn't get a mentor. Nobody, remember, my parents didn't have any money and they could not advise me. And I'm not beating on my parents. They're wonderful, loved my brothers. I've only got brothers and myself. But they didn't know to say, hey, go get somebody. What the Beatles did is they got the right promoter and they got the right George Martin to do their music with them. And it took them to a whole level. See, I didn't know that. I was just doing our own music. We wrote our own songs. And we could have done that. I didn't. That wasn't my right livelihood anyhow. But it was just, I didn't get enough mentors early. I intrinsically knew it, but I didn't have it so it's verbally as one of my goals in writing. Now my goal, everything I do, I find whoever the best is. And there's somebody the best, and they'll always help you if you're honest, sincere, and are trying to help them also.
Mark, that was absolutely incredible. I know everyone's going to go out and get your book, Ask, right? We're going to drop links in the show notes. That'll come in all of our things. Where else, if they want our listeners and viewers, if they want more Mark, where should we send them to go?
Yeah, we got videos and everything at askthebook.com. Just go there and you can watch videos by Crystal and Mark, and you'll love it. And then number 2 is if you're going to write a book and have a little bit of money and want to invest. And by the way, remember, it cost us $120,000 to get Chicken Soup out. So, we charge $30,000 to do fiction, nonfiction. If you're doing a biography, it's $200,000. Just go to markvictorhansenlibrary.com. And I think I'm library 3.0. Library 1 was Alexander the Great. At 28 years old, he created the wisdom of the whole world in Alexandria. Now, you know what happened to that if you watch videos on YouTube. Number 2 is my hero, Andrew Carnegie, who I said, he gave us libraries. My best friend, one of my best friends, is Dr. Ben Carson and his wife, Candy. We spent a lot of time with him at different places. And he was his mother was one of 28 kids. I can't even start to believe that. And she was illiterate and kept checking all of Ben's papers and grading him and his little brother, but said, you will go to the library. You're in the bottom of the class in third grade. By fourth grade, you're going to the top of the class. You're going to read 2 books every week at the public library. Come home. And she couldn't even read and was highlighting, but he thought he was really correcting her. And he went from the bottom of the class, top of his class, got a scholarship at Yale, Johns Hopkins, became the world's top neurosurgeon. You can read his book, which I wrote the foreword to, called Gifted Hands. He's written a lot of books, and we've endorsed each other's books. He endorsed my book, The Miracle in You. But the guy's just, he did 15,000 pediatric neurosurgeries, one where he conjoined twins, cut them apart, and they're both alive and healthy and well now, which everyone said couldn't be done. Because you and I are here, and that was his right livelihood, one of several. Because you're not limited to one right livelihood. You're not limited to one destination. You're here to be passionately on purpose until you master something and then go to the next thing to master. Does that make sense?
Mark, it makes complete sense. And you are such a treasure. You've done so many incredible things, and your passion today, like as I'm sitting here, like I told you, I'm ready to just run through walls. It's been such an honor to get to do this. You've had such an impact on me. Thank you, sir. We will get this out. Everyone, we're going to put show links in there on all of Mark's, the Ask book, if you want to write a book, but reach out to Mark. Mark, we need more people like you. I'm grateful for you, sir. Thank you so much for your time. All of our listeners, go out there, take his advice, do the 3 things, write those down every day, get the journal, write down the 10 things you want. Who is the who? And lastly,
create a mastermind alliance with people that can deliver the goods.
I wrote, you can see my mastermind scribble, create a mastermind. Mark, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Guys, go out there and be wealthy.